Hey Fusers, it's Lee. I'm here to show you my 2000 watt Renogy inverter install on my 2017.5 23A. I decided to install it in the compartment below the driver's side bed, and that location had many advantages. I was able to ventilate the compartment. You can see the vent there and the vent there. And also provided for horizontal mounting and clearance recommended by Renogy for heat dissipation. Also, this location allowed me to route the 110 volt off the high voltage terminals down to my shore power compartment, where I was able to install a box and a 30 amp RV receptacle so that the inverter can power my whole coach. There's the green and gray wires where I routed through. You can see in front of that is an opening that goes into the electrical box in the shore power compartment, so it's very easy to locate the proper place to drill through. I caulked the opening, and I'll show you my shore power compartment in a moment. Over on the other side is where I wired a switch. You can see the switch below my Renogy switch. And that was very easy to install. That's a switch to turn off my converter. I didn't want to go into the electrical box and flip the breaker each time. Wanted to make it simple. And it was real easy because this was a cord that was connected to a receptacle in the back of the box, and so I simply cut the end off, routed it to this box, and then broke the hot with the switch, routed that down through the coach. It was easy to do that because there was already a hole, and I just pushed through the insulation and then re-insulated it. So that worked out very well. All my wiring under the coach is wrapped in this conduit protector. Back on this side, my 12 volt, I used the factory connector to the battery disconnect. Thought that would be a good idea. You need a fuse, 200 amp, so that's in the line. And you'll notice my wire is not red. That's because I used building wire. Long story about that. FedEx let me down, and I had to get my project done, so I bought building wire. To do my 12 volt size single aught is required, and that's adequate for a fairly long run, up to 10 feet for the voltage drop. Also, it's more than adequate for amperage, and but I would not recommend that. Get your battery wire. It's a little tough to work with because it's not very pliable. A couple of other comments. This is the back side of the inverter. I use 10-2 wire, thinking, well, I got a 30 amp shore power cord. I'll put 30 amp wire out to the receptacle, but these yellow 30 amp terminals, I had to fight with those a little bit, had to trim them up to fit the connection. So 12-2 wire is rated for 20 amps. You got no more than 17 amps out, so go 12-2, use the blue terminal connectors, and you won't have to fight with that. This is the remote connection. It's a phone cord connection to the remote switch to turn the inverter on and off. You have to have this switch in remote position in order to use that. And one other comment, I use these. I didn't want to buy a battery crimper. They're $55, so I thought these would work out. Nice tight connection, screw tight connection, but big diameter, and they're thick, and also have 5/16 holes. So some of the terminal connections were 3/8. I had to drill them out, and then the size of the diameter caused me some problems too. So I would buy the $55 battery crimper and just use traditional battery clamps. So let's go outside, see what I got going on out there. So first of all, my battery compartment. Here's where I had a problem with that connector. It wouldn't fit the terminal, so I went with battery clamps right to the posts. You can see my my Doman conduit protector. I've got everything secured well with screwed on clamps underneath. And again, very short run, about 7 feet to the inverter from here, so not bad. And then we'll go around the coach and we'll check out my shore power compartment. Here's my 30 amp receptacle, and you can see my gray wire in the back. That goes up again to the high voltage output on the inverter. That's my ground wire. I decided to route that over to the ATS because it had a ground bar. You could just mount that right to the box. The box is steel and it's connected to the frame, but I thought, well, there's a ground bar right there. I drilled a little hole in the top and there was an open terminal and I terminated my ground there. So let's go back in and try it out. So it's fired up, battery disconnect is on, Renogy switch is on. Let's try the microwave. And there she goes. So I can warm my coffee up in the morning. I've also got a small hair dryer. This was one of my other primary uses. Hair can be dried in the morning. And one other usage, that we're going to put a crock pot probably in our sink. And my wife likes to crock pot cook. It's 250 watts. And my understanding is the chassis recharge is at 80 amps. If my calcs are correct, that's close to 1,000 watts. So, you know, we can run up to 1,000 watts while we're on the road. Certainly a 250 watt crock pot could be run continuous while we're on the fly. And you know, finally, a Keurig coffee maker is probably my biggest load, close to 1,500 watts, but we can make 120 volt power quietly now. So thanks for watching, everybody, and happy fusing.